25 students from across all of our programs for lunch one day and a couple of hours of really facilitated discussion with the trustees. And I think Peter has summed it up well. I think common themes were the value that students see for the choice that they have and the variety of the programs that are available to them. And certainly they had some various pieces of advice for us as educators and as trustees around certainly they would advocate for lots of experiences in career counseling and linking their experiences to real life, and that was another thing that Peter noted. If we had brought you the notes, we would have had pages, so Peter did a very good job of getting a synopsis. And I think probably from the discussion of folks after the event that it was a very useful opportunity to provide a voice for our students, and I think you'll see in our achievement contract that I think all of us see an opportunity there that we should be asking our students more about things that are going on in the district and what they value in their educational experiences. So the students were very open, very articulate, and they appreciated the ask. And I'll leave it at that for your information.
Any comments from trustees, questions?
Well, just a comment. I thought that the whole process was extremely well done. I thought that the students were extremely articulate, expressed themselves. I was actually quite surprised and quite impressed. And I would hope that we would sort of embrace this in the future. For next year, perhaps even look at going to the 3 high schools and expanding a little bit, because I think that they bring something to the table that's important. And I hope as trustees we recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to management reports, superintendent's report.
So, to you, Mr. Chair, I'll just direct folks to the good news item, and while I'm doing that, I'll ask Mr. Taylor to queue up the district achievement, because I won't spend very much time on this. You saw the good news item in Destination Imagination. That was part of our presentation today. Just wanted to acknowledge that we forget sometimes that in amongst all of the school sports that our students engage with and in our classrooms or in our gymnasiums or on our fields, that we have very many athletes in the Valley who participate at other levels in all kinds of sports. And of course on page 8, we note that we had 1,124 athletes take part in the 2012 BC Winter Games held in Vernon this year, and of course very successfully, as they always are. And they represent, if you look at a very broad range of elementary and secondary schools, and if you look at the number of students who participated, very many of them were successful and were medal winners. And so we just want to honor that in the whole child development, the things that go on outside of school, particularly around extracurricular, can be very enriching for them. And then you had heard us talk in the past about the Energy Bear, known as Fred McGregor, and what you see there is the results of the final quarter for our energy reduction incentive program, and how well that schools are doing in their continued efforts. And just want to always underscore that this is really student-led in I would say 90% of the buildings, with teacher support or sponsor support, but there are some very keen conservationists out there at our secondary schools and elementary schools, and particularly at elementary, it has taken on a life of its own. So you'll see the reduction and the rewards to the schools. And then just a note at the very bottom that to Mark-Eastville Secondary School, their Environment Club, were the winners of with a proposal that they submitted province-wide of a $2,400 grant that will be presented to them. And my understanding is there were only 6 of those grants in the province given out. So good for them for the leadership that they showed.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from trustees?
I just wanted to say how nice it was to read the coverage of our grads recently and to see that achievement out in the public, and I really like that process, and that was nice too. That's good news for me to see those kids. I like that.
And on to your second item.
So I have been reporting in the last number of meetings that the inquiry that was actually contracted by the previous board had been delayed because the actual person who we had contracted with was very ill. I had I've just received the inquiry report. I got it at 11 o'clock this afternoon. She had hoped to get it to us a little bit earlier, maybe on Friday, but it came to me on this morning, and I, of course, have had a very quick chance to look at it and to send it along as we do any document that's going out in public of that kind of task to our lawyers to just make sure that we're meeting the requirements under the Freedom of Information Act. So the reason it's not here today is that it arrived so late, and we just need to have a look at it to make sure that we are following the FOIA regulations, and it will be out and ready for review when those things are completed.
Any questions or comments? I have one. Can you just confirm who has seen or not seen the report?
I am the only person who is in receipt of the report, and I'm the only person that has seen it.
Thank you.
And that will remain that way until we release it.
Thank you. Moving on to district achievement contract.
As trustees are aware, every year the school districts are, by legislation, required to submit a district achievement contract. The format has changed virtually every year for the last 4 years, even though the contracts are often mandated to span 3 or 4 years. The format can change within those 3 or 4 years several times. Just very recently, the ministry, as they try to link the new education plan to district achievement, changed the format once again. For us as a district, we found it to be a much more user-friendly format, much more open enough for us to put in place the things and report on the things that we have always wanted to be able to report on, not just numbers and data. And unfortunately, though, that didn't actually get solidified by the ministry until about 2 weeks ago, and it's due, of course, July 15th. So what you have in front of you is our district achievement contract, and before I begin, I need to thank your senior leadership team who, with me, but mostly without me, as I've been off on medical leave, gathered the information and drew some of the partners in to provide a grassroots perspective as we develop the contract. So if I could just single out our Director of Student Support Services, our Assistant Superintendent, and our Director of Elementary Instruction. And of course, the document that you will see on the screen is much too perfect and much too technical to have been designed by myself or the Lord Douglas. And of course, we have Jeff Taylor to thank for that. So as this document will be published on the website within the next few days as we just tweak some of the links that we wanted to be able to show you. It is in a easy reader format. You just turn the page. And what I'd like to just highlight, because I'm always in trouble for talking too much, what I'd like to highlight for you are our goals for the next number of years, some of which are familiar to you because they are so important to us that we feel that we really need to continue on in that vein. So our goal number 1 is that we want to make sure that we are on the leading edge of personalized learning and following the mandate brought forward by the ministry in the BC Ed plan. And that goal speaks to providing our students with opportunities to have personalized learning plans developed in collaboration with home and school. Goal number 2 speaks to a sense of belonging, and in that we would continue to develop a sense of belonging to enhance the engagement of all learners. That, for those of you who are district achievement junkies, would recognize as our number 1 goal for the last 2 achievement contracts. And it isn't that we value it any less. We think that by engaging students in personalized learning choices, that will increase their sense of belonging. So it simply was that we wanted to recognize the landscape of personalized learning above the sense of belonging, because we think those two things are so interconnected. And goal 3 speaks to literacy, to improve literacy skills, knowledge, and confidence for students K to 12. This targets all of our students, of course, and we are looking, and you will have experienced reports from us that we are looking at putting as many resources as we can in the intervention of literacy strategies, knowing that research tells us that for students, early intervention is key to getting them on the right track around literacy and reading and writing. So you'll see there under goal 3 that our target is that all students are reading by grade 4, all reading by grade 4. That's a big task, and it's a daunting task. And it doesn't mean that they will all read perfectly at grade 4. It means that they will be engaged in reading experiences from K through 4 that will allow them to become proficient in reading, but their journey will be a little bit different, all of them. We are looking at making sure that all student plans include reflection on writing skills, because of course reading and writing are so interconnected, and we have historically had goals that were separate. We've had goals about reading, we've had goals about writing, and what we've learned from that is that one doesn't begin or end with the other. So we've woven those two together in that goal target. And this is new for us. This is the last target under Goal 3 is that all students in a regular program will be enrolled in grade 10 in their 10th year. So that means that we are looking to make sure that in their coursework that our grade 10 students are on target in their academic areas in their grade 10 year. That means that we will have to do some significant work around adapting and modifying and working with students in their grades K through 9 to make sure that they can be in a position where their personalized learning path will have them in their grade 10 year working in their academic subject areas at that grade level. That doesn't happen currently right now, and it means that we need to provide support for them, particularly as they transition from grade 7 to 8 into secondary, to make sure that they're getting what they need to be working in literacy at the appropriate grade level. And that will be a challenge for us, but we feel that we are up for that, and we think that it's really important. Because as they move in grade 11 and 12 on their personalized journeys, the role of literacy will be critical for them as they start to make career path choices and they start to focus in on courses that will just assume that literacy is there. So it's a big challenge for us, but we believe that we can accomplish that. Our last goal is numeracy, and that's to improve numeracy, knowledge, skills, and confidence. And it isn't by coincidence that you see the word confidence in both of those goals. One of the things that we know is almost as important in skill acquisition than any kind of instructional strategy that we can design for students is how they feel about what they're learning and what kind of confidence they have going in their ability as a learner. And so as we embed all of these and weave these things together in personalized learning from K to 12, we need to be conscious of constructing opportunities for students to enhance their confidence level in their mastery of literacy and numeracy. When we survey students, and this isn't new, it's historical, we often find that there are very low levels of confidence in students in the area of math. There's a gender split in the confidence in the area of math, with more girls feeling unsure about math than boys. It's historical. And we think that if we begin to look at that and address that as an asset that students need, confidence is an asset in the acquisition of new knowledge. It builds resiliency and grit as they struggle through new curriculum. We're going to need to make sure that we provide them with opportunities where they gain confidence. So it's an actual focus for us. And then finally, Goal 5, which is school completion. It's something that we have worked on over the last 5 years, but to be fair and honest, we've been on again and off again with this goal as the ministry's expectations and requirements have shifted. We never lost this, but we never are to have articulated this as a serious goal in the last achievement contract because the ministry had changed some of its expectations. We were waiting to sort of see where it would land. But we believe that we do well with many students, and many of our students are successful. Please don't get me wrong. We still are not meeting the needs of all of our learners. And so for us to seriously examine school completion, and not because necessarily we're comparing them to the province, it's about what's really, it's about what we can achieve in the Comox Valley, and we believe that we can achieve more, that more of our students can complete high school on their own personalized learning path, whatever journey they need to take to get there. And so we have articulated some individual strategies here within the goal description and further on in the document around strategies and engagement and action. So those are where I'd like to leave you. The rest of the document, if you could just move through, I won't go through, it speaks to the new format where the ministry is asking us to report on engagement and actions. So those are strategies for us. And we were pleased to be able to do so. The other sections of the report that are new are we got to list promising practices, where we have historically not really been able to do that much in terms of the format. And the ministry is very clear about our need to report on assessment and evaluation, and an expectation that we look at how we use assessment in our practice, how we move ahead in that practice, and how we look at how we link student performance to assessment expectations. And are we assessing what we really need to be doing? So that the rest of the document speaks about those things. I would ask, with the indulgence of the board, for more time to go through this at an education committee meeting in the fall. But I would ask that you would accept the document that you have seen as trustees prior to this for an endorsement of the achievement contract.
Okay. Trustees, questions, comments? There's a recommended motion on the agenda.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Comments? Trustee Grilling?
Yeah, I think just the one on completions, we have to recognize that we do have a transient population because of the base, and so sometimes those numbers are skewed because of postings in and postings out. So it would be nice if we could be able to track those a little bit better. Even if it wasn't provincially, we would show the grad rate, at least district-wide. We would have a better recognition of what our grad rate is if we were able to track some of the people that are leaving the province for other provinces.
Trustee McDonald?
The one that really sticks out for me, I guess I might have a little philosophical or experience difference, is the one about the kids being in grade 10 when they in their 10th year. Because I actually think that it would be good for us to have a regular practice of having 2 years to get through grade 10 maybe, or grade 9, and that a lot of the time they just need to opt out and go hiking every day and read a lot and not even try to do that workload until they're ready for it. But that fits in with the personalized path. So in terms of putting up a blanket thing, it would be they should be in grade 10 by their 10th or 11th year for me, and it fits in with those paths. So, I feel sometimes we're rushing them out, and when we try to rush them, then some of them just can't make it, fall out.
Yeah. Thank you. And seeing no other just in discussion, I'll call the question. Is the motion as presented? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to school operating times.
Mr. Chair, this is simply, it's part of what normally happens in May and June of the school year. It's part of the School Act. We were at the last meeting, you endorsed the school calendar as presented, and the school operating times were not attached to it because we were still waiting for the fallout and some clarification on Bill 36. And so what you have simply in front of you are the school operating times for the 2012-2013 years, school by school, understanding that in perhaps throughout next school year, if for some reason through consultation with their own school communities those things change, those changes would come forward to you as amendments. We would inform you of any changes. Every once in a while, we don't get the bus schedule right, or something changes, and we end up with a dismissal time that's 4 minutes later or 4 minutes, and we would inform you of that so that you're aware. It's a fairly fluid process. Not quite sure why, but it is. So what we would ask is that if you would look at these and endorse the school operating time schedule as it's been presented.
Okay. Comments, questions from trustees? There's a motion, suggested motion on the agenda.
I move that the board adopt the school operating times for 2012-2013 as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Paula. Any discussion?
I'd like to put it on the table for an ongoing discussion of your planning process for the senior management, that if we use an evidence-based system, we should shift the start time of our secondary and junior secondary schools to something closer to 10 or 10:30 in the morning. Then I would encourage you to pursue that in terms of looking for better outcomes for our students.
Thank you for that. Actually, I'm interested in when we had the meeting with the cross-section of grade 12 students, that item didn't come up as I'm not suggesting that it should have, but I was curious that it didn't in terms of the starting and stopping time for school. But thank you for your comments. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, has the Transportation Committee looked at this in respect to public transportation? So, is this
Through you,
Yes, we have. We've assured the Comox Valley Regional District that we are not switching our school hours, so there were some challenges last September. So they're aware of our calendar.
okay? Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question and the motion as presented. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Background report on community schools.
Just for the gallery, at the main meeting, there was the beginning of a cursory conversation about community schools, and as that meeting, that conversation unfolded, we realized that for some of our new trustees, that they were unfamiliar with the concept of community schools, and I offered to write a backgrounder report just about today, how they operate, what's a little bit of their history, and then I asked the individual community schools to ask them 3 questions, and they provided you with information. This is for information only, and it was meant so that all trustees in the future, when we might be having a conversation about community schools, would have a base level of information about how community schools function, which schools in our district function as community schools, and they are Hornby, Denman, Cumberland Elementary, and now Lake Trail. And there's a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and in terms of how we support them with funding, and I would simply leave it for you for your information.
Thank you. Any questions, Sheila?
I think there's just one correction, I think, on the chart of the funding, that the community safety project at Lake Trail was funded through the city.
What page are you on? 15?
Page 15. I don't think that was Rotary funding. I think that, unless there was other funding, it was a grant from the city of Courtenay. And
You're on page
15?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
At the top, Community Connections, Lake Trail, Community Safety, and it says in brackets Rotary.
So that's our recollection where the funds came from.
Yeah.
This was prepared by the
Because-
Director of
yeah.
Finance, and it's correct as far as we know.
As far as we know, because the check ended up coming back from the school, so it went from the school to us. So it came in as a Lake Trail school check, and I was just getting some background information. If it's wrong, then
I'm just saying that as a correction, I believe it was from the city of Courtenay, and so I wanted them to get credit for it.
Thanks. Any further comments, questions? Being none, we'll move on to district literacy plan.
Mr. Chair, to the Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you. You have my briefing note there about the district literacy plan. This is the 4th year. Literacy now had a 3-year life, and our community has gathered to create a not-for-profit society now called the Comox Valley Lifelong Learning Association. The district is an integral partner in that, and it's been a bit of a gift for me to participate in that type of community interaction around such a broad topic as literacy. The 2 highlights of the 4-year plan have always been early learning and youth and young adults and their preparedness for careers. And so 2 very distinct working groups have grown out of the steering committee to be working committees on essential skills for youth, and another one on family literacy and early learning. And we have certainly employees who have been very involved on those committees, and we have had some great participation in events like Family Literacy Week throughout the years. So it is the plan that's there that highlights what's going on not only in the Comox Valley, but also the first year of Hornby's literacy coordinators' work, and also our participation as one of the partners on the steering committee. And that work will continue in the future, and I think it's really valuable for our community. And certainly it does have a focus on family literacy, but we know that that is about literacy for everybody. And it has a very big impact on our learners once they hit K-12, that we have an impact on the community from birth to death, that we're about literate societies. And so I'll leave that as my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions, comments? Is there a recommended motion before you?
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? None. Call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Secretary Treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman. Page 33 in your package, you have a briefing note recommending or seeking approval from the board to put up for sale a partially completed home on the Royston School site. There's a picture of the inside and the outside, and you can see that the inside is not developed at all. It's a shell of a building. This building is surplus to our needs. What we're looking for approval is to do a disposition of the building only, not the land, with the requirement that the building be relocated off of our property, in which case we can then reclamate the foundation. We've had some interest in on-site daycare, before and after-school program, and later on in our agenda, Royston after-school program is on the agenda, and with a recommendation to deal with that inside the facility rather than in this building. And my understanding of the history of this is this building has been put up for sale in the past, and we have had a couple of community members approach us on this, so there seems to be some interest.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Trustees, there's a recommended motion.
Just a comment. The funding for this building was from Danier. Was that where the funding came from?
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. It was originally, the funding was put forward by a daycare operator. It was Ms. Rutenberg, and she paid for it to be constructed by Danier students. And then she was no longer operating a daycare business, and it was purchased back from her by the school district.
Okay.
For the equal amount.
For the equal amount that she invested into it?
Yes.
Okay. So any loss that we have is going to be borne by the district. Okay.
Need to be advise potential buyers that the city of Comox or town of Comox don't allow portable buildings to be moved in their jurisdiction, because this was a building that the Boys and Girls Club were anxious to move as a portable to Aspen Park, and were unfortunately not able to do that. So it's the one challenge of this building.
So do we have any trustees prepared to make the motion?
I thought he did. Did you?
No, I don't. Go ahead.
You always do.
Go on. I'll move the motion.
Thank you. Have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor? Opposed?
No, I'll abstain.
Abstain?
It's
Carries.
reluctant.
Thank you. Trustee remuneration rates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 34 and 35 of your package, page 34 has a copy of your current policy number 1006, and page 35 has the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index April to April, as your policy refers. So I'm bringing this forward as required in the board policy. All items, so the top right-hand corner of page 35, the 2.0%, is the consumer price index from April 2011 to April 2012. So bringing it forward, no action is required if that's the wish of the board, but I am required to bring this to you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? Trustees? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Human Resources.
Yes, on page 36, I have three retirements. Brenda Babin, teacher at Highland Secondary, will retire on June 30th after 13 years of service. Christine Jackson, educational assistant, will retire June 30th after 24 years of service. And Gail Donato, teacher at Arden School, will retire June 30th after 9 years of service for the district. And all those folks, because they missed the retirement function of the board, will be invited in June 2013.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Thank you very much. Board committee reports. Finance committee. Do we need a motion to management meeting? Have a motion to approve the management reports?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Board committee reports. Finance committee. Trustee Grinham.
Thank you. We held our last finance meeting on May the 31st to finalize our budget. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the contribution of Trustee Peter Coleman and Trustee Ghana Dancorda in the committee, along with our Secretary-Treasurer and our Director of Finance. This was a bit stressful this year. Certainly we had changed the process about the budget. Now, to throw on top of that, we changed from GAP to PSAP, which made our lives really miserable. But in true form, we were able to get through it, and you see the budget, which is attached in pages 40 to 50, I think it is, or 49. And if there's any discussion on the budget before we start reading the recommendations, we would be happy to answer any questions on the budget from the board.
So before doing that, I'm wondering just to remind the public that we had this on the last board agenda. It was deferred till today because we were wanting to be able to do apples comparison, the numbers, recognizing there's different financial requirements in terms of the reporting, and so I appreciate the efforts that the committee and the Secretary-Treasurer went to do that and line that up for us. And I'm wondering if you could just take a minute or two to orient the public to that.
So what I'll do is I'll ask you to turn to page 46 in your package. Page 46 is the recommendation that's coming from the Finance Committee to the Board to deal with the budget adjustments for the 2012-13 operating budget. Up in the top, the original estimate, we had shared at a public meeting a couple meetings back that we were looking at a $1.3 to $1.7 million budget shortfall, and at that time we had not received all the information on the revenue projections from the Ministry of Education. Looking at page 46, the actual column, you can see the $1,049,820. That is the amount of the actual shortfall after we've been able to work through all of the revenue projections. Finance Committee had a series of recommendations which we went through in the prior meeting, looking at reductions in the maintenance office, central office, some resources to the schools, reductions at student services, and some school-based reductions, and those added up to $695,736. That's the figure on the bottom right-hand corner. So a revenue shortfall of $1,049,000, expenditure reductions of $695,000 leaves a budget shortfall of $354,000. The recommendation of the Finance Committee is that amount be funded from the district operating reserve, and that we don't make those reductions in the next year. Page 47. So to summarize again, we are, as a school district, at the directive of the ministry, are moving from generally accepted accounting principles to the public sector accounting board standards. And the significant difference there is column 3 and 4, which are highlighted in yellow, now need to be brought into our operating budget. So in prior years, the special purpose funds and the capital fund were not included in the budget bylaw. Now under PSAP, we have a requirement to bring them in, and which makes it difficult to compare last year's budget to the current year. This document, if you look at column 2, which says operating for the 12-13 year, and compare that to column 6, which is the amended budget for the 11-12 year, that is comparable. So the operating budget for last year amended to column 6 compared to column 2, the operating budget for next year is comparable. If you go about 3/4 of the way down, you find a total expenditures in capital letters, and it says budget bylaw statement 2 in brackets. On the far right side in column 6, you see a budget of $75,643,000 compared to the number in column 2, $74,576,000. So we have approximately a $1 million reduction in our operating budget, and that is largely attributed to the declining enrollment, and it is solidified in our revenue through the change in the funding protection, which used to be 100%, it is now 98.5%. The yellow section is our special purpose funds. Our special purpose funds include things like school-generated funds, the Learning Improvement Fund, bursaries. There's about 6 or 7 of them. and they add up to $4.202 million in revenue and expenditures. And we now need to bring in our capital fund. Our capital fund has $3,007,000 in revenue and $3.627 million in expenditures. So it has a capital fund shortfall of $419,000, which is funded from an investment in capital assets on our books. That is an accounting entry that does not affect our operating budget in any way. PSAB requires that we bring it in on the budget side now. It has always been dealt with in our financial statements at year end. I want to illustrate how this makes a difference. So if you find halfway down under salary and benefits, if you look at the education assistance, if you look at column 6, which was the current year's final budget, we had $5,249,000 worth of expenses for education assistance. And if you compare that in column 2 to the projected preliminary budget for next year, it's $5,072,000. If you look over on page 46 under student services, you see there's a suggested reduction in education assistance and other program support people. So that is where that reduction is coming through. If you, in the yellow column, under the special purposes, there are 2 funds that are also funding education assistance. One is the Learning Improvement Fund, and one is the Community Links Fund. So that now needs to be added into our annual budget for next year. So if you look at column 1 for the education assistance, we have a $5,750,000 figure. Comparing that to last year's column 6, it shows an increase in the amount of money that we're spending on education assistance. The increase is as a result of changing in our accounting from Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, GAAP, to PSAB, the Public Sector Accounting Board, because we now have to bring in special purpose funds. So this is intended to help digest what the operating apples to apples comparison is, and also to understand how the accounting standards change has affected our total budget. So down as you slide down column 1, there's a shaded area, total expenditures, that's $82,406,128. That is the amount of the budget bylaw, including the special purpose fund and including the capital fund, compared to, in column 6, a bylaw of the current year of $75,643,000. Working my way down column 1, underneath the $82 million figure, you see a net revenue / brackets of $974,000 in the negative. That is being adjusted or funded through $200,000 to offset the capital expenditures that are coming from the special purpose. The $354,000 is the amount of the operating shortfall that's on the bottom right-hand corner of page 46. And the $419,000 is the capital shortfall, which is coming from our investment in capital assets. Column 5, down at the very bottom, there's a figure of $163,825. That is the current projection of our operating surplus for the current year. When we did the final budget for the current year, we had a projected shortfall of $402,000. With additional revenues and decreased expenses in certain areas, that has now changed to $163,000 surplus. So that's good news. The logic on the Finance Committee of not recommending to reduce the whole $1,050,000 that we're short for next year is very likely additional revenues or reduced expenditures will help to eliminate that $354,000 shortfall in the subsequent year. And so we don't want to see reductions made going into next year if we believe there may be revenues or reduced expenses to offset that. And that has traditionally been the history in this district through our budget process. At the bottom of page column 2, the operating surplus for the end of this year is projected to be $2.636 million. We are projecting to use $354,000 of that from the 12-13 operating budget, which would leave $2,282,000 operating reserve. Our starting point in the current year was $2.47 million, so a slight net decline between the two fiscal years. Over on page 49 is the annual budget bylaw itself. As it shows in our agenda, there's 4 motions required. The first 2 readings then a motion to suspend the procedural requirements around the third reading, and then the final motion. And we can simply refer to this as the annual budget bylaw for the 2012-13 school year in the amount of $82,406,128. And the schedules, page 50 through 62, is the Ministry of Education required budget documents, and all the numbers that I have shared just translate onto the ministry's documents in more detail. I'd be happy to answer any questions any of the trustees would have.
Thank you. Trustees? I have a question just in relation to when we talk apples to apples next year. Will that be column 1 is
That is correct.
the new, so our comparison next year will be in relation to column 1.
We have to do the final budget in the fall, and the final budget will have yellow columns again because it won't be comparable. But when we're doing the 13-14 year, we will be back to having comparable figures.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, we have the recommendations before us.
Okay. Move that School District 71 Comox Valley Annual Budget Bylaw 2012-2013 in the amount of $82,406,128 receive its first reading.
I have a seconder.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously.
Second.
I move that the school district number 71 Comox Valley annual budget bylaw 2012-2013 in the amount of $82,406,128 receive its second reading.
Second.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously.
I move that the board unanimously agree to suspend the requirements of the School Act and Board's Procedural Bylaw 2007 to have the third reading at a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Seconder. Any questions or comments? And again, procedurally, this requires unanimous consent to pass. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And finally,
I move that the school district number 71 Comox Valley annual budget bylaw 2012-2013 in the amount of $82,406,128 receive its third and final reading.
Second.
thank you. Comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we would ask for a motion to receive the report.
Motion to receive the financial report.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you for your collective efforts. Appreciate the second time around efforts. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it is it appropriate making a comment relating to the cuts that I didn't actually do at the time, but we did receive considerable input about the physical activity position, and just a concern. I know that other trustees as well believe in the importance of daily physical activity and our phys ed program, and are hoping that when we're counting on senior management leading a review process. Is that fair comment, Superintendent?
It is a fair comment. As I've noted several times before, we had always intended to look at a new model around the whole idea of daily physical activity and physical fitness for lifelong fitness as well. I had offered previously this year to some teachers and principals and vice principals to be able to meet as a bit of an advisory committee, but of course they weren't able to do so because of the job action. It's my intention to offer resources and support to get some teachers together so that we can look at some new models. There's a variety of different things that have been proposed. There's some very keen teachers with not only with expertise but passion in this area, and it's my intention to work with them to develop some new models for our students.
That's great news. Trustee Selby lent me a really great book, Spark, not Sparks, but Spark, and it's quite inspiring in what they've done. And I know Trustee Coleman also is really interested in this topic. So,
and we've actually flooded the school district with that book. Actually,
it's great. It's great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Policy Advisory Committee, Trustee Selby.
Policy Committee minutes are provided on page 63 of the package. We've also received a list of the completed work on policies by the boards over the past few years, and that's page 65. I'd like to thank the members for their work, Trustee Hammer and Trustee Donald Carter. Thank you. And to the other members before consideration of the policies presented tonight, I will move my report.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Graham. Any questions or comments? None. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
The committee has recommended 2 additional policies that have been revised. I would ask Sheila Shanahan, Assistant Superintendent, to review these.
Thank you, Trustee Selby. You have, first of all, in front of you revisions to an existing policy that was originally review of an employee decision. And this particular piece is really pretty much a cleanup to give people access to the policy. It was kind of hidden. It really wasn't something that folks could find, and they were jumping to the appeals bylaw. So this gives a very clear process for people who would like to review or an appeal of a decision of an employee, and it talks about the various levels. But this policy is not really greatly changed. It's really been revised to include parent, guardian, and student, that they would be requesting that particular review of an employee decision. So I would entertain any questions about that one, first of all.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Grenham?
Not having the old policy in front of me, I would just wonder if perhaps in the future, if we're going to make changes in a policy, we just highlight them.
Certainly, we could do that.
So that we have a better understanding of what is being changed. I mean, it's only administrative, but
That's fair, and we've often done that.
Yeah.
We can certainly do that.
Okay, thanks.
My only comment on that is that when there's, being on the committee, when we see a revised document, a revised policy, sometimes the changes and updating it makes it a very busy and confusing looking piece of paper. So there's not just the one or two. So perhaps something like a before and after, even having both, so we can have a clean copy and then
Yeah. Or if there's such a change, then just attach a copy of the old policy for reference so that we have that ability to compare.
I think that, we have our representatives delegated to the committee, so I would be counting on you, on our trustee reps, to bring forward any concerns if they've felt the policy needed more input from me. Yeah.
Thank you. And so we have a recommended motion for us.
Is that the board adopt policy 4014, parent guardian student review of employee decision as revised and presented?
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
The last policy we bring forward for your consideration is entitled Employee Leave of Absence. This was one such, Trustee Grenham, that even the committee couldn't work with the red marks, because it truly was a significant change. And so we spent several meetings going through this one. It is a reflection of current practice, and the partner groups have very significantly looked at this particular piece and given significant input to make sure that it was really clear for folks. Obviously, there are things around leave of absence in folks' contractual obligations, but these are more around leaves without pay and significant, really around the process with which we would handle leaves when they come as a request to the superintendent. And I'll leave it at that unless there are questions.
Any questions, trustees? Trustee McDonald?
I was a bit confused with the meaning of item 2E, where it refers to principals and supervisors who may authorize requests for leave of absence that extend holidays must advise the applicant of this policy. So I wasn't clear that do principals and supervisors have the authority to approve leaves of absence, or do they all go to a committee? And if they all go to a committee, why do we refer to principals and supervisors being able to authorize requests?
They're included in the particular process because we have an electronic system. The supervisor receives the request first, and they need to comment before it comes through to the leave committee. So it depends on the type of leave that would come to a leave committee. But principals and supervisors are always aware, and if it is a leave without pay, they're asked to comment on its impact on the particular place where the employee works.
So they don't technically authorize it, though? They
Not a leave without pay, no.
give input to it?
Yes. They're responding to it as the supervisor.
Okay, so I'm not sure then if that, in
Right.
fact,
I think
leaves
what
an
it-
ambiguity.
Yeah, what this was meant to do was to define the principals and supervisors who may authorize requests for leave. In other words, they authorize very particular pieces around professional development. All of our principals and supervisors have areas where they authorize leaves, and so it was meant to define the supervisors, not their ability to authorize this type of leave, because the process doesn't speak to that, but they are part of the process.
Because there's a variety of different leaves that are available to various stakeholder groups, and within those types of leaves, there are different authorizers, and there are cases where principals and supervisors authorize various types of leaves, and some that they don't, they go on to a district committee.
Seems a little ambiguous still, but I guess you work with it, so good luck.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So there is a motion before us.
That the board adopt policy 4500, employee leave of absence, as revised and presented.
Second.
Thank you, Donna. Any questions, further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we've already received a report, so I'll speak to the Education Committee. There was no Education Committee, and the next one is set for October of this year. Transportation Committee. Here we go.
Well, the minutes are attached. They've been circulated to the committee, but not yet approved. It's a very enjoyable committee process. You'll note that this new program, First Ride, which is an initiative of our operations manager, is booked to take place. It's an opportunity for parents to bring their kindergartners to the bus and get them on the bus and try it out before the first day of school. So if there are any concerns that they might have, they have a chance to try it out. And it sounds like quite a lot of fun. We are, looking at trying to be forward-thinking about changes that may be needed to come up or opportunities to work more collaboratively with our partners. On the walking school bus update, I did attend a cycling task force meeting as an observer. That is a task force that's been established by the 3 municipal partners in CBRD, and they have political appointees to that, and some technical advisors and community partners from, there's something called the Public Cycling Advisory Committee. It was very interesting. They were really dedicated to trying to increase the number of people who are feeling safe and using cycling. And so they were quite interested to hear about proposals to expand our cycling and also walking. I had to say, we're looking for walking school bus as well. The DPAC have contacted schools to see if parents were available to sit as reps on a bit of a planning committee, and I have several names that have come forward, so that's encouraging. And I attended a bike rodeo, which the Cycling Coalition put on at Plumage Park, and they received a grant from the New Horizons for Seniors, which is a federal government program, with the idea that they would train seniors to cycle, get their cycling skills up. Well, most of them who are in the group are extremely avid cyclers. So they would do some training, and they're going to do some rodeos at the Driftwood Mall and other locations for adults. And then they were there sharing their skills with these kids. So all of the Plumage children had opportunities to do their figure eights and practice intersections and go around and the whistles blowing. And it was, there were I think there were between 12 and 15 of the Cycling Coalition volunteers there. They were just great. The PAC had made coffee, or the school, I'm not sure who had made some coffee, but they didn't have any time to stop for that because they were really focused, and the kids were having a great time. One of the interesting things came up was how many kids don't have bikes or don't have working bikes. And the Cycling Coalition brought a big load of bikes with them to be used, but it was significant that a lot of kids who don't have bikes. And of course, at the small ages, you know that they grow out of them quickly, or parents don't have bike repair skills. So when the topic came up at the task force meeting, the CPRD rep said, "Oh, that's incredible because our landfill is full of bikes." And so it seems like there's an opportunity here to do something about trying to divert bikes, maybe get kids in our high school program, BEST, or these other ones doing some bicycle repair, good skills for them to learn, and then make bikes available at the elementaries. And we could even have a swap program where you could check out a bike, like a calculator or a library book, and then by the end of the year your child will have outgrown it, you bring it back and you're going to get an upgrade for them for the next size. So some exciting ideas that come out of things like that is ways to get more kids on bikes. That's been quite fun.
Thank you. Want to move receipt of your report?
I will move that.
The seconder?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, and that's carried. And the item stemming from that is the Town of Comox transportation discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on page 80 is a briefing note from myself. Just on page 81 is a copy of the letter that the board originally received back in January, I believe, and it was referred to the Transportation Committee to deal with. The Transportation Committee has discussed it. The Director of Operations and I had an opportunity to meet with 4 of the senior administration from the Town of Comox. We had a great meeting. This letter was one of the agenda items that we were talking about. What they were able to provide to us was information and drawings, which is included in your package, on adjustments to Rob Street in Anderton, as well as to Guthrie and Torrance. They are doing a complete redesign to slow traffic down, to increase the marking of the pedestrian crossing on the Rob Anderton intersection, which they supported with a transportation study that they had done. And the Guthrie Torrance will be a flashing beacon to increase greater awareness of the crossing that will happen on that street. We understand also that there is a new marked crosswalk going in for Ridgemount and Torrance. They weren't able to provide us drawings, so generally we thought this was a good strategy. They certainly spoke positively of it and supported the change with their traffic study. The one area that was raised in the letter from the mayor was us having a discussion around our Safe Routes to School plan, and this is something that we indicated that we would work with the school through likely our Director of Instruction on a Safe Routes plan to find ways that the students that are walking to Rob Road can get there without crossing roads at dangerous places and making sure that they use the safe intersections that are developed. So that's something that we indicated to the town that we would work on sometime in the coming school year. The final offer in this letter was an interest or an intent on their part to have the town council meet with the school board as a whole. And at that meeting, we had recommended or indicated that we would bring this forward, and if asked by you, that we would coordinate a meeting and we would set an agenda and get backup information for you, those agenda items, once the meeting has been set. So the recommendation is, if you're inclined to direct us to coordinate a meeting with the town council councillors as well as Town of Comox councillors and with the school board.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Trustee Grinham?
Yeah, I was the one that referred this letter, and I see in here this, the Town of Comox is asking us to implement and maintain a crossing program to support crossing for school children both before and after school and further. I don't see that as being an item that was discussed or certainly not reported, but certainly there's a cost involved And I would suspect maintaining a crossing program would mean a body to control children going back and forth across the street. So I'm just wondering what happened to that.
For your treasurer.
The discussions that we had, when this letter was written, we had not completed the transportation study as we understand it. We had not come up with the plans on how to deal with the intersection of Robb and Anderton. And our discussions around the Safe Routes to School plan was around routing, not around the provision of a crossing guard on a permanent full-time basis at the intersection. And they believe that this island in the middle of the road and the addition of blue bike lanes? Green in Comox, the green bike lane and reducing the width of the road will eliminate the ability of cars that are, what's happening right now when a car comes down Anderton, they turn left onto Robb Road and they stop because there's a vehicle coming up Anderton. Their vehicles are swinging out around them and kids can be in the crosswalk and they're trying to eliminate that. By putting the island in, by putting the bike lanes in, there's not going to be room for vehicles to swing around anymore. So our discussion was focused primarily on route and not on the requirement for a crossing guard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila?
I think the whole point of doing these sorts of studies at the school level and including parents and other partner groups is that you have an open dialogue without coming to an immediate conclusion about what the solution should be. You have the dialogue and come up with where problems are and what other solutions might be that are more cost effective than crossing guards or a wider range of choices. So I think that we, as we move forward, can have a very productive discussion about how that school kids can get there safely and without immediately leaping to one solution.
And just as a closing comment, we had that discussion. We talked about being proactive in sharing information, and we've committed to the quarterly meetings, and we have one scheduled for the third week in September to be able to get ahead of those issues so that we can have that collaborative discussion.
So I'd like to move the recommendation.
Recommendation as written.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? Trustee Grin?
Just for history purposes, back in the late 90s, there was the school board and the three municipalities used to have meetings. It was a joint, and it was once a year. The only issue was they couldn't come up with an agenda, but so it was sort of a
Not a meeting, then.
well, it was a meeting, but not run very well. But nonetheless, there was tri-council meeting. So, but it would be certainly I would be supportive of meeting with the municipality.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the recommendation as written? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Board appointees to other bodies, committees, and structure. For the Summer Institute 2012 Promoting Mental Health in BC Schools. It's in your package on page 85. And there's a recommended motion.
I'll move that any trustee wishing to attend the 2012 Summer Institute Promoting Mental Health in BC Schools may do so from optional board business.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. New business. Who's the we care person?
Mr. Chair, approached lots of interesting before and after school programs within our schools, and was approached by We Care to put a before and after school program at Royston Elementary, and there was a principal was supportive of the request, the PAC was supportive, and a survey was sent out to school parents as well as demonstrated need. And they followed all the protocols, the management regulation, and we recommended that the program for We Care be approved.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Trustees? We have a motion before us.
Move the motion?
Move the motion as written.
Yes.
And seconder?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Were you an in favor or opposed or an abstain? I'm keeping score. One abstention. Carried. Thank you. So under new business number 2, suspension of the July and August regular board meetings. We have a recommended motion before you.
That the board dispense with holding regular board meetings during July and August 2012.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? None. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. It only counts as one vote, Rick.
Okay. I've just put an emphasis on it.
And under correspondence, we have a letter there for your review from Minister George Abbott in response to a letter I sent on behalf of the board inviting him to come by the school district and advising that he may do so in September as part of the Back to School tour. He's not a rock star yet.
Very important gentleman.
Okay, thank you. So before adjourning, move to questions and inquiries from the public.
Just wondering about the entirety. I know you said it's undergoing some kind of legal review right now. Any idea when that might be completed or how it may be
I have no definitive date, but as soon as possible, as soon as the normal protocol, as soon as possible in terms of the timeline, and it will be made available to the public. We will post it to the website, and where it will be available to all.
Welcome, Corinne.
Thanks. About a year and a half ago, I think we passed the LGBTQ policy. It became the 13th district, I think, but the question is, a very important part of that policy was the establishment of the Pride Committee, which would involve partners and board and students and community leaders. And I'm just wondering, there was supposed to be, I think, a report in January of the progress. I don't recall reading anything about it. I'm just wondering where you stand on the Pride Committee.
And so can we answer that and through you, talk a little bit about what we have been doing? This has been a difficult year around committee work. Because of course we weren't able to have probably one of the most important partner groups at the table around committee work, and that were teachers who are actually doing the work in classrooms. So that's part of the reason why we didn't get very far on the Pride Committee. Instead, we were working on other issues around implementation, and she was heading that and talking a little bit about how to do that.
Yeah. So you've talked about the reason that we've delayed the Pride Committee somewhat because of job action and just the time of year. But interesting, even in job action, we had some very distinct counselor leaders, as you will recall from last summer, that put resources together. So we had workshops for teams from the schools, and those groups have continued to work without us, and they've been very successful at that around providing something monthly to the contacts in the schools to elevate the necessary resources and those things that would be certainly usable. So they still continue. The 2 counselors are ready to meet with the new assistant superintendent, and on their list of things to do is to complete the implementation plan once we're able to do that and to bring people together, and that should be able to happen in the fall. It seemed that to start it late in the spring probably wouldn't be the thing to do, so we'll be looking for members for that committee in the new year, the new school year.
Any other questions?
Hi, for the Comox District Teachers Association. Well, we would like to acknowledge and appreciate all the work that was done on the budget and the consultation around the LIFT funding. We would like to publicly express our disappointment in the allocation of the LIFT funding, as we feel that it doesn't accurately reflect what the intent was, and we feel that there's a significant imbalance in funds that were set aside to address teaching time and specialist time for students. in the budget. It's just an observation on our part and an expression of our disappointment in the outcome of it.
Thank you. Noted. Seeing no other questions? Oh, sorry.
Thank you,
Hi, Susan.
Chair Weber, for giving me an opportunity to say something. I just would like to say it would be great to hear the board express some appreciation for the teachers and the professionalism they show and the time that they spend on various activities. My kids have been really involved in theater, and so I know that part best, and I know that in conjunction with what Corinne has mentioned here about the sexual orientation and gender identity policy, that Lori Mazie at Vanier, I think, partnered with the Community Justice Center to write a very excellent play, and it's really amazing work, and that they were able to take that play to different school districts on the island and really talk about homophobia in a really meaningful way. I'm not sure the public appreciates the number of hours of work that a teacher would put into an undertaking like that. It could be 200 or 300 hours of work. And it's not just in theater, right? I've been involved in destination and imagination with my kids. Same thing, a teacher would take a whole weekend and spend it free going to Vancouver to support those kids. And I don't know how many of us would volunteer our time to do free work where we work. So I would hope that the board would find some way to acknowledge the work of the teachers community and to appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Donna, all those in favor? Carried, and we're adjourned. Thank you.